hear me okay? Yeah. Fantastic. So this is not an easy gig just following a TEDx. And now it's me, so there you go. But I think the good thing from my point of view actually is there was a number of points discussed in the previous presentation, which guess what? I'm going to mention again in mine. So AI, ML, DML, which I didn't hear mentioned, but I'm going to mention DML. And also I think Mytel mentioned, just at the very end, they mentioned we mustn't forget about the person-to-person contact. So this links in nicely with the importance around voice. So we can all instant message people, we can all web chat, we can SMS, but at the end of the day, still today, the best form of communication is voice, which we're going to talk about, okay? So a little bit about myself. Actually, let me just start my timer, so I know how I'm doing. There we go. So I've been at Redbox for 5 years now. I'm a solutions consultant there, so I support the sales team globally for defining solutions. I've been in the industry for the best part of my career in voice recording, having started as a developer. So yes, I've got that geek as well aspect inside me. So really today I've got 20 minutes. We're going to talk about voice capture. We are going to talk about AI and ML and so on. But the key headline is about unlocking the value of your communications data. So first off, just a little bit about Redbox. We are number 1, number 2 in the market for voice capture. That means what we are doing, we are installed globally, and we are capturing up to 1 billion call recordings per year for our customers. Okay? We operate in a number of vertical markets, so we are recording in banks, we are recording in call centres, we are recording in government institutions, we are recording in places I can't even mention for security reasons, and we are recording in public safety, so fire, police, ambulance. And we're very proud to say that we have 80% of the police force recorded using our products, and the majority of the global interdealer brokers as well use Redbox. Okay? We can provide on-premise solutions for capturing that voice. We can provide hosted cloud solutions for capturing that voice, and we can also do hybrid as well. So, why do people record? I think probably a lot of you, all of you will know where you've called into a call centre that says your call could be recorded for quality and monitoring purposes, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard that, okay? So quality monitoring is one example. That's about coaching your staff, identifying the high achievers, identifying the not so high achievers, and using all that information you're collecting to generate coaching packages to say, look at this person here, listen to how they dealt with that call, okay? And they turned an unhappy customer into a happy customer. And then you can wrap that up and present that to someone who may be underperforming, okay, and say, listen to this is how it can be done. Call centres. But probably the headline above all of the examples around capture is compliance these days, that you hear more and more and more of. And it's so important for many industries to have to adhere to legislation and demonstrate that they're adhering to that legislation, if I can say it properly. There will be auditors knocking on the doors of people saying, we want to see the evidence that you're following the law. We want to see evidence that when you are doing financial transactions, you are capturing that and you can evidence it as well. Okay? So there's a few more examples up there as well. But what does it all mean to actually unlock the value of this data? So in the majority of scenarios today in the marketplace, if you look at this diagram, I think it sums it up, and we'll probably refer back to this diagram several times. The red circle there in the middle is all about compliance. So we still live in a world in terms of voice capture where it's almost a tick box, and it's almost like a grudge purchase for companies. Great for us, you know. The law says you have to voice record. Great, come to Redbox, we'll sell you a voice recorder. Everyone's happy. But still we live in a sort of situation where that recorder gets purchased, it gets put into a data center, a comms room, if they still exist these days on premise somewhere. The door's shut, and it's not used ever again until someone needs to look something up or retrieve something. Okay? Now, not everyone is like that, so some people do try to use their voice recorder, and we do have applications which I'm going to discuss a bit later on. But even stuck in that red circle and you're manually searching, at best we have stats to sort of say you're probably listening to 2 or 3% of your transactions, of your captures. And that's even with an army of people listening to stuff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the chances are that when they are listening to this information, they're probably listening to entirely the wrong stuff. So they're focusing on stuff over here, when the real value stuff is over here somewhere that's going to make a difference to the business. Okay? So this is where we're going to move out from that red circle, and it's not just about being compliant. We want our customers, we want our partners, we want our resellers to be competitive as well. Okay? And to be competitive, it means unlocking that data and doing clever stuff with it and getting insight that you couldn't get before. Okay? So, what does that data look like today? So I'm just going to read from my notes here because this is the classic sort of study from a consulting firm who came up with these numbers. So today, the data in this world, they say 90% of all data has been collected in the last 2 years alone. 67% of that data is locked or unstructured. Can't really do a lot with it. And 90% of businesses expect data-driven insight to become a key differentiator by 2020. Businesses are going to be relying on that data to make strategic decisions about the direction they're taking, about how they're treating their customers. Okay? And again, this kind of links back into that TEDx discussion. You heard that theme as well about using data and adapting customer experience and so on. So this data, what value can it hold, or what value can voice hold? So really, as I said at the start, voice holds more value than any other means of communication. Okay? When we look at sentiment, voice is the most natural way to communicate. You can tell if people are angry, if they're sad, emotional, irate, and so on. And you get that from the voice. Okay? I'm going to give you some examples here of how sentiment can be viewed with dealing with sarcasm. And I just Googled sarcasm and see what came up. So I'm just going to read some examples where people are having conversations and someone said something and what they really mean, but what maybe the other person thought they meant. Okay? So someone says, I hear what you say. What they really mean is, I disagree and I don't want to discuss this any further. And the other person's thinking, I think he accepts my point of view. Okay? Another example, I'll bear that in mind, means I've already forgotten it. And the other person's thinking, I think they're going to probably do this, you know. And then another example, last example, not too businessy, but I think we all have done this before, I certainly have, is you must come round for dinner sometime. And what I really mean is actually that's not an invitation, I'm just being polite. And the other person's thinking, I'm going to get an invitation in the post very soon to this. But that's sarcasm, okay? So just examples of understanding sentiment. So we've got all this data. We've got this expectation to unlock the data. But what can we do with it and how would we do something with it? So here we go. AI. I told you I was going to mention it, okay? AI, ML, and DML, which, as I said, I don't think anyone mentioned it, but I looked up the definition of AI, and AI really, what I've read, is like a headline. It's a general term that sits at the top, and ML and DML sits beneath it. It's like subsets of AI. So I slightly disagree with what one of the guys on the TEDx, someone's nodding here, so I'm pleased you agree with me, okay? Now, machine learning was defined correctly in the sense that you can define algorithms. So basically, AI is about automating what a human can do, but using a machine to do it. And with ML, you give it algorithms, and off it goes and starts doing stuff. Okay, I'll give you an example in a minute. DML, which also was, well, it wasn't referenced by an acronym, what was described is where you're giving the machine a set of algorithms, but also the capability to make its own choices, create its own choices without you giving those instructions to it. Okay, so that's really getting out there. But with that technology, the sort of examples on the board here, they can be used to sort of optimize customer experience. Security and fraud has already been mentioned today about intercepting unusual trends, okay? Using these algorithms that a human has defined and put into the machine, okay? Marketing decisions, operational automation, and enhancing employee satisfaction, okay? Now remember, we're not talking about that 3% anymore that someone sat there listening to voice recordings. We're talking about 100% now of analysis, okay? So, why Redbox? Why are we the ones to sort of say we've got the answer to this? Because there's a big blob of data here that customers may keep for a year, they may keep for 5 years, and we have plenty of customers who can't agree a retention period for their data, so they say, oh, no, what, we'll keep it forever. So there's terabytes upon terabytes upon terabytes of data of voice recordings, okay? So why are we the ones to sort of glue this all together? So, recap on Redbox. I mean, as I said, we're deployed globally. We provide a highly resilient and secure capture system. We can deploy in the cloud, as I said before, and so on. However, the key for us is we have the widest set of ecosystem partners, which I'll explain a little bit more about. We are the experts on voice capture, but we're also the experts on having relationships with other partners who hold the keys to what we're talking about here to unlock that information. So some of the applications that we provide, yes, we provide tools for searching and replaying. We have tools called Event Reconstruct, which basically the police use a lot for recreating incidents that have happened. Live monitoring, quality management, insight for event tracking and so on. So we have a product suite there, and we are enhancing our product suite. We have the capability today to transcribe calls, so we can take the audio and turn it into text. And the moment that audio turns into text, then immediately there's a lot more you can do with it. We have an integration into Salesforce, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about a bit later as well. And then the last bit there is the open integration. Now, the open integration lies at the key of our story around unlocking your data. Because when you invest in Redbox, you get APIs included free of charge for you to access your data, to move your data around, to do whatever you want with your data. So we believe very strongly in data sovereignty, okay? It's your data we're recording, so you have every right to want to do whatever you want with that data, and it's our job to make it as easy as possible for you to do whatever you want with that data. So, putting all that together, if we look at this diagram here, I hope you can see it behind me. At the bottom there, you can see the world that we live in every day in Redbox. We're recording banks with turrets, we're recording radio systems for the police, we're recording call centre phones, and recording stuff that I told you I can't tell you about as well. So lots of fun and interesting stuff. That top layer, there's a whole bunch of companies out there, including people here today who are exhibiting today, who do lots and lots of very, very clever stuff around AI, ML, DML, and so on. But they don't have voice. They can do stuff on data that they've collected. They can do stuff on databases and various other stuff to make informed decisions. But the one bit they don't have is the voice, where people are talking to other people. So where we plug in is that red box in the middle, funnily enough, a red box in the middle, where we take all the pain away for these companies at the top, because we know about some ridiculous number of telephony platforms, some ridiculous number of cloud systems, some ridiculous number of sort of communication systems of which we can record all of these. And then through our APIs, we can expose and unlock that voice and data and push that into other ecosystems very seamlessly. So we're moving away from these sort of siloed verticals that exist inside of businesses where people say, well, that's my voice recorder, this is my CRM system, and this is my financial system over here, okay? And what we're not doing is saying, well, come to Redbox because we're the one-stop shop for everything. We know we can't be experts in everything, and we've got no interest in being experts in everything. We're experts in the voice. And you know what? We're now the experts in making that voice and data as easily available to other ecosystems as possible, okay? So let's look at some of those partners. So at the bottom here, Mitel, you saw the guy up here earlier, is one of the people we partner with. We record Mitel, Cisco you've heard of, Unify, Avaya. There's many, many more connectivities down there that we work with globally, capturing voice and storing voice. At the top there is just a selection of some of the partners, more recent ones that we've partnered with, and they're using our technology to get the voice, to get the transcripts of that voice fed into their platforms. So luckily or unluckily, depending on how you want to look at it, I'm flying out to Atlanta on Sunday. We are showcasing with Microsoft with their call intelligence product that feeds into Microsoft Dynamics, okay? And it just goes to reinforce the message around the value that we bring in, and the expertise that we bring in capturing that voice, okay? And just to the side there, it's important I mention, you probably can't, hopefully you can see it, but Nuance and Speechmatics. So they're our partners of choice who do the transcription of the audio. And with the announcement recently with Nuance, we are also taking it a step further, again, feeds back into the TEDx stuff, with voice biometrics, identifying people, what they're saying, the emotion detection, and so on and so on. So let's focus just a little bit more on some of those partners and just give you some headlines on those. So Salesforce, quick hands up. I know there's not many of you in the room, but quick hands up. Who uses Salesforce at all? Okay, great, okay. So Salesforce, we are the only partner on their portal who's providing voice recording. So we have something called a voice data controller. Just checking. And basically, Salesforce users can purchase that, okay? And what they get with that is voice recording, they get transcription. So now when they go into the customer records and look up details of clients, they can see when the client called in, they can listen to the recording, and they can also search by the spoken word as well. So just give me all records where Bristol was mentioned, or the TechFusion 2019, search for all interactions where we've been talking to our customers where TechFusion was mentioned. Okay. Now you take that up a few more layers and think about the tools that Salesforce has in terms of their insights, their reporting, their trending, and so on. And then it becomes even more powerful of what they can do. Just a summary there on the voice data controller. So again, it's just emphasizing really, we don't care what the audio source is over on the left-hand side here. We simplify all of that information for people like Salesforce and other partners that you've seen to consume that information into their platform so they can then search on it and do clever stuff. A few more, and these are very recent announcements. Theta Lake, again, these guys specialize, there's that term AI again, keep hearing it, but these guys specialize in compliance and adherence to compliance. So before we came along, they already have tools for generating workflows and spotting trends in financial transactions, but they wanted to up their game in terms of what's going on. So they wanted to plug into the voice on the trading systems. So not only are they analyzing data that's being transacted, they're listening to what the traders are saying and then analyzing that and generating output from that, the whole basis of reducing risk. Xdroid at the bottom, which I think is a great name. Again, AI is mentioned again, and ML. These guys are focusing more around the call center side. So what I would call the softer side of analysis, okay? So they're about processing all the customer interactions. NPS, if you're not familiar with that, is a sort of a net promoter scores. It's a sort of a standardization within call centers for scoring people and evaluating, assessing businesses' performances, and also sort of integrations into CRMs as well. They are using Redbox. A couple more, and then I think we're kind of at the end if there's any questions. Nuance, I just mentioned them. We've been having a long-standing relationship with Speechmatics. We've been very successful with. Nuance kind of sort of elevates us into the enterprise space where these guys play. So you will hear these guys are being used in the banks, I think like RBS for the biometrics and so on. So the voice detection. Is that really Paul Long talking on the phone or isn't it? And then Refract at the bottom there, again, is around the call centers. It's around creating insight for coaching, for improving performance and improving customer experience. So really, that kind of finishes the presentation, actually. So I think, hopefully I was all right for time. That was 20 minutes, spot on. There you go. So I think we might have a little bit of time. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take a few questions from anyone. That's great. That's great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Black Star, for the invitation as well. Thank you.